Well, we're coming up on the 24-hour countdown to the much-anticipated release of Andor, coming this Friday at midnight Pacific here.
Who?
You remember Cassian Andor. You know, the guy who killed his rebellion comrade in arms in the first 10 minutes of Rogue One to save his own ass.
We'll be alright.
Yeah, I barely remembered him myself when Disney announced this series a few years ago. But hey, it's 2022, and what good are in-between quills if you can't sling a spin-off or two based on a forgettable support character from a mostly ho-hum movie? Anyway, you're getting Andor, and the fine, totally not future stars on the To Catch a Predator revival show at Disney expect you to sit down, shut up, and consume product. Even if it's as bland, tasteless, and likely as canon-breaking as most of the recent offerings and other shows and franchises. And that being said, I wanted to take a look at the show before I choke it down like a plate of rancid Brussels sprouts served off dollar drink night strippers' pimply asses. Although after the 5-alarm puke fest that were Boba Fett and Kenobi, the pimply stripper ass isn't sounding too unappealing. But you never know, I suppose. I've been wrong from time to time. I was wrong about House of the Dragon so far, so unless they completely botched that show, maybe I can hope that Lucasfilms may be able to channel a little bit of the old Star Wars magic one last time. There's been significantly less marketing for this show compared to the likes of Kenobi and Book of Boba Fett, and I find that unusual. In fact, it's outright strange when you consider this show is reportedly coming in hot, with more episodes, longer runtimes, a bigger budget, and a preemptive green light for Season 2. Not that that last thing matters much these days. I'm pretty sure the A League of Their Own series and Halo have also been greenlit for second seasons. And at least as far as the Halo show goes, well, you can check out my reviews for that flaming pile of second harvest shit. Here's the premise of Andor, and admittedly, it's broad and doesn't really give a lot away, but that's to be expected. We start 5 years before the events of Rogue One and follow an ensemble cast of characters during the time that a rebel alliance is forming in opposition to the Galactic Empire. Our main character is, you guessed it, Cassian Andor, with Diego Luna reprising the role. According to interviews with Luna, we first meet Andor as a thief, scraping by, who eventually becomes a revolutionary. Yeah, we got that, Diego, thanks for clearing that up. But he does drop a little bit more detail through the character profile. His homeworld was apparently destroyed by the Empire. Through the series, we see his progression from revolution-averse cynic to the passionate freedom fighter we get to see in Rogue One. Writer Tony Gilroy described the character as a natural leader who manipulates people effectively, adding that he's really a perfect kind of spy, warrior, killer. Yet details on the other characters are thinner than a Victoria's Secret model's waistline pre their rebranding. But we have Genevieve O'Reilly as legendary Rebel Alliance leader Mon Mothma, senator who tries to navigate the politics of the Empire while secretly helping found the Rebel Alliance. We also get newcomer character Cyril, played by Kyle Soller, an Imperial officer determined to stop Andor's rebellion. Soller's described Cyril, as having an extreme sense of need to impress and fill a hole within himself. And to that end, he's chosen a path of restriction and complete control, one of total domination. And rounding out newcomers that we have actual details on, we have Denise Go as Daedra Miro, another high-ranking Imperial officer who does not like Andor. Maybe there's some personal baggage there? Who knows? I guess we'll just have to wait and see. We also see in some of the trailers that we know Forrest Whitaker's reprising his role as it was Saul Gerrera, and that probably means we're going to see other tie-ins from some of the smaller members of Saul's gang from that movie. That'd be my guess there. But I'll say this, after watching the trailers a couple of times, I wanted to be sure, honestly, I'm cautious. It's no secret that I dislike Dances with Boba. I mean, Book of Not the Fett. You know what I fucking mean. And I outright loathe Kenobi. What a fucking clusterfuck of awful that was. Honest to God. The trailers here hint at a darker, grimier, more life isn't fair and the good guys sometimes lose tone. Something that kind of reminded me of both Winter Soldier and Game of Thrones to a degree. Not this Game of Thrones.
You've been up there, on a dragon's back. You've had that power. Would you have burned the city down?
I don't know.
This Game of Thrones.
No one threatens his grace in the presence of the King's Guard.
I'm not threatening the king, sir. I am educating my nephew. Braun, the next time Sir Merwin speaks, kill him. That was a threat. See the difference?
And if the trailers hold up, hopefully, and I can't stress that enough, we're going to get more than the last few sparsely populated, desert planet-only, thinly lived-in, sterile environments the Star Wars universe has recently offered us. And hopefully we don't get the great-grandparents of these jackasses either. Nobody needs a Star Wars prequel tied into the Skittle Squad. Seriously, fuck these guys. Andor looks like it does have a little bit going for it on the writing side, and that actually, I'm 2 thumbs up on that right from the rip. It's written by Tony Gilroy, who also wrote the screenplay for Rogue One, and also happens to have a couple of Academy Award nominations to his name. So the guy knows his craft, no doubt about that. He also wrote the screenplays for a small action movie franchise collectively known as the Bourne Trilogy. Maybe you heard of it. He's also got writing credits on some other big-time flicks you probably saw if you're about my age. Things like Dolores Claiborne, Armageddon, Devil's Advocate, and the wildly underappreciated Enemy of the State. Gilroy was also scheduled to direct the episodes of Season 1, but due to the minor inconvenience of that pesky pandemic of unknown origins that totally wasn't at all eventually tied to the lab leak theory, had to sit out directorial responsibilities while the show filmed without him in Pinewood Studios in London. That's it that I have on the Andor pregame recon. The cards are shuffled, the board's set. What do I want from the series? First and foremost, I want good, professional writing and a well-executed story. I honestly don't even care what the story is at this point. I'd just like to see something resembling logic, intent, and nuance make a return to the Star Wars universe. I'd also like to see proper setups and payoffs come through. Main characters who go through proper arcs, and they can be redemptive or fall from grace kind of arcs. In fact, I'd like to see a mix of this. I'd like to see Andor becoming more of the freedom fighter that we end up seeing him in Rogue One as, while maybe he has an idealistic partner who ends up turning his back on the rebellion and sells them out. I'd like to see meaningful relationships develop between characters on both sides of the war. That way when tragedy hits, I feel like my investment in them was worth it. I'd like to see multidimensional characters, again, on both sides, who have both good and bad aspects to their personalities and outlooks. What I'd absolutely not want to see is another round of incompetent male heroes being led around by their obviously superior female counterparts. I want zero references to Trump, MAGA, AOC, the Clintons. I don't want to hear about pandemics or border policy. Beyond the broad conceptualization of the latter, I understand that Imperials are going to have checkpoints, but when they're done right, it comes out like Solo, and it doesn't make you initially feel like the wall-to-wall coverage of the American border crisis that you see on CNN and other networks like that. And I definitely don't want to hear any direct allusions to insurrections. Just stop. Like, I'm over that. You know, the Star Wars universe, while always having had political underpinnings, never struck me as a fan as being hyper-inspired by American politics. And I'd like to be able to watch and enjoy this show through that particular lens of not being reminded of what 2022 in this one country on a planet of 200 some odd countries is dealing with politically. Like, just give me a fucking show. And after that, in terms of story beats, everything else is cream cheese. They can focus on espionage, heists, ground combat in the alleys, or urban warfare, or dogfights in early X-Wings. They can do all kinds of stuff. We can get sabotage stuff. We can get the political backstabbing, the turncoats. There's a lot of stuff they can do. They have a lot of leeway here, and they can do a lot of those things given the scope of the project they're trying to deliver on. I heard they're talking at least 2 seasons that we know they have greenlit, with the probability of going for at least one more, since that seems to be what Disney's wanting to aim for with the Star Wars stuff. So I'm going to keep my fingers crossed and report back after watching the first episode or 2. Like I said before, the first 3 episodes are coming Wednesday at 12 p.m. Pacific, so be on the lookout. And remember, many Bothans died to bring us this information.